really tough and they're really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that because you don't know who you're going to meet.
Welcome to the Binge on Self-Love podcast. My name is Anna, but you can call me Anci, and thank you so much for tuning in. Binge on Self-Love podcast is about navigating binge eating disorder struggles, disordered eating, and negative body image. Although I share my personal experience with having a negative body image, eating disorders, and I do uncover bits of my personal story, this podcast is not as much about me as it is about you. Beautiful human beings who struggle, who fight, who grow, and who evolve every single day. This podcast is for anyone who wants to feel supported on their recovery journey and simply for anyone who's trying to improve their relationship with themselves. I believe together we can turn something so negative, such as binge eating, into something more positive and hopefully go from binging on food and self-hatred to binging on self-love. Subscribe to the Binge on Self-Love podcast on your favorite platform and tune in every Tuesday for a new episode.
But there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that because you don't know who you're going to meet.
Disclaimer: Binge on Self-Love podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It doesn't provide professional medical advice and it is not a substitute for diagnosis or treatment. In this podcast, we cover the topic of eating disorders, so if you find this topic triggering, it may be better for you not to listen to this podcast. Always make sure to put your mental health first. Hello everyone, welcome to the Binge on Self-Love podcast. My name is Anna, but you can call me Anci, and I am back with another episode. Happy Tuesday or happy any other day of the week, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. First of all, I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourself and your mental health. I hope you're not too hard on yourself and that you do allow yourself to get some rest and to take some time off when you feel like you need it. And the reason why I'm saying this is that I personally often feel like I am so behind with everything, with work, with my podcast, with my life in general. And because of that, I often don't allow myself to just take some rest and do nothing without feeling guilty about it. And I think it's just the wrong mindset to have. Resting, not just physically, but mentally as well, is so important and so much needed sometimes. And there's no reason why we should feel guilty or not worthy to take some time off. So I wanted to encourage you just a little bit if you feel like you're always like, go, 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 get this done, get this done, get this done. It's so much needed to just chill out sometimes, take some time off and rest and really just relax and do something nice for yourself. Today I want to talk about the many faces that eating disorders may have, as well as any form of disordered eating and disordered body image may have. This episode is actually going to be a little more chilled one, just me sharing some of the thoughts and things that have been on my mind lately. And I don't know if it's the winter weather or just my state of mind, but I just feel like it's really the time to just chill out. So if you feel like it, make yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, wrap yourself into a warm blanket, and without further ado, let's get into today's episode. When we speak about eating disorders and the body image and about disordered eating and unhealthy eating habits, we often tend to showcase and emphasize and focus on the big things and the big issues, which obviously it makes sense, it is important, but often the danger lurks in these seemingly small, insignificant things, and because they are so small and seemingly insignificant, they are usually difficult to spot. I'm speaking of things like weighting your food to the gram and feeling guilty when eating out when you can't control the portion so well. I'm speaking about making healthier and healthier food choices until you eventually eliminate most foods from your diet and you're left with just a few quote-unquote safe foods, and eating anything that's not in that safe group can cause your anxiety. I'm speaking about not eating your favorite chocolate because you know you would end up feeling guilty if you had a piece. I'm speaking about not buying the beautiful dress that you really loved and that looked stunning on you because you worry you would look quote unquote fat. I'm speaking about skipping gym or a jog or a yoga session and feeling so guilty about it that you're determined to work out twice as hard on the next training session. The choices we make every day, how we're going to treat ourselves, how we're going to talk to ourselves, even what thoughts we will react to and which thoughts we will let go, all that adds up to the overall picture of ourselves that we create. The way we think of ourselves it matters a lot. It matters so much that our thoughts have the power to even ruin our day, to affect our self-perception to such an extent that we literally feel like we hate everything about ourselves. I've said it a couple of times before. I think I've gone a long way when it comes to recovering from the binge eating disorder. I have made a progress on my body image. To be fair, my self-esteem is still not my strength, but I'm working on it. But I have to admit that the eating disorder patterns, after so many years, still do return sometimes. Never the way they did in the past, but they do come back every now and then. Sometimes I just notice them and let them go. But other times, I am more vulnerable to those thoughts. To give you an example, last week I wasn't feeling really well. I had a cold, so I took a break from going to the gym. And on the second day, when I would normally go to the gym, I started to feel really down and moody and anxious. And my mind took a 180 turn. All these thoughts like, you're not good enough, you're fat, you will never accomplish anything, started popping in my head. And like I've said, I am usually pretty good at ignoring these thoughts because I know they're not true. But for whatever reason, I wasn't able to ignore those thoughts so easily. And then the well-known all thoughts of, you can eat whatever you want, you screwed up anyway, so it doesn't matter anymore, appeared again. Those are thoughts that I used to have every single day when I was binge eating. It's the idea that when you eat anything that you didn't initially plan to eat, usually something that wasn't part of your restrictive diet, it meant that you screwed up and that you can now eat whatever you want. Maybe it may sound ridiculous to some of you, but I think it's a mindset that a lot of us have experienced. I was so used to using food as a coping mechanism for negative feelings, for stress, for handling situations that were out of my control, that until this day I still sometimes reach out for food to comfort me. Not by binging necessarily, but still kind of like using food to postpone the issues going on in my life or to postpone the feelings that I don't want to deal with right now, to make myself feel a little better where nothing else seems to bring me that kind of joy or that kind of feeling. And on the contrary, sometimes I catch myself thinking I could have full control over my life if I would control everything I eat. And again, it's one of the biggest lies that eating disorders try to feed us with, that with them we have a control over our lives, when in reality, they are the main reason why we lose any kind of control over our lives. What I'm trying to say is that even those small things that we say to ourselves, the thoughts that we have in our minds and the thoughts we react to, those do affect our lives and not always for the better. I know that if you have these thoughts, it's really hard not to listen to them. I feel like they even tend to appear on those days and on those times when we feel the most vulnerable or when we don't really feel good in our skin or when we are going through some hard times. But even if it's hard and it seems impossible at first or at some times, we can make the choice not to listen to those thoughts. And every time we choose not to listen to those negative thoughts and every time we choose not to act upon those thoughts, we win. Every time you do not listen to those negative thoughts, it means a small victory over the disordered eating or an eating disorder or the negative relationship with your body and yourself. Yes, I felt like shit for not going to the gym this week, and that voice in my head started to whisper things like, you're just lazy, you're going to gain so much weight, you're a loser because you never stick to anything and stuff like that. And did I listen to those thoughts? Yes, I did for a couple of days, but then I realized that it's just the old eating disorder patterns kind of reminding me that at some point they were part of my life and I've listened to them. But they didn't bring anything good into my life and I don't want to listen to them. I don't want to act upon them. I didn't go to the gym because I didn't feel like it, because I was sick or whatever, but none of that makes me not good enough. None of that makes me not worthy of eating, or none of that makes me a loser. And most importantly, it doesn't mean that I need to punish myself in any way, such as over-exercising or restricting myself or whatever. Every day we have a chance to take that little step to that victory. It can be saying yes to having a dinner and saying no to your eating disorder voice telling you to skip it. It can be ditching the scale to stop determining your self-worth by the number on the scale. It can be having your favorite meal or a snack or having a dessert. It can be saying no to the gym when you feel tired or when you just don't feel like it. It can be saying yes to eating out with your friends or your family and no to eating the same meal every single day. Whatever it is, be proud for even the smallest victories because they are the ones that make the true difference. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, make sure to wait till the very end because I left in the weirdest blooper that happened during this episode recording and I thought it was kind of fun, so I left it there just to show you the reality of making a podcast and to show you that nothing's ever perfect. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the Binge on Self-Love podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or on YouTube so you don't miss any future episode. I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode. Until then, take care and talk to you soon. Bye! Like they even tend to appear on those days and on those times when we feel the most vulnerable. 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 Fuck. Vulnerable.